It's a very historic and momentous day in America today, and depending on what occasion you're celebrating, will say a lot about you. Welcome to the show, folks. On a Monday afternoon, on Dr. King Day, on Inauguration Day, on the last day of the college football season officially, that ends tonight.
Forgot about that.
I'm Kendrick. That's Chris Stevens, who's fighting the power. What power are you fighting, sir?
I mean, the nonsense we're about to deal with for the next 4 years, that power.
Oh,
Black
you
people,
fighting
we got to stick
47. Okay.
together. Black people, we got to stick together. That's my one comment.
Jared Hoffman declares Bowie State is the real AQ. Why is that, Jared?
I mean, who else has wins? What other D2 has wins over Howard and Hampton? Sorry, Mom. You know who it is. It's us. It ain't no more BSU. We the real HU. It is what it is. So when you say HU, you talking about Bowie State now.
Oh, God bless the Bison and the Pirates. That's going to be a hard thing to overcome, boy.
Yeah, man. And Ken Rashad, fresh off his birthday, watching the Rams lose in the snow in the divisional round yesterday. How you going, man?
You really had to start with that, huh?
Yeah. We're a current
Chris,
event show. We talk about current events,
Chris,
so it's
are you
current
an
event.
Eagles fan?
Hmm?
Are you an Eagles fan?
No, I'm not actually, believe it or not. I actually used to be a Cleveland Browns fan, but I dropped them when they signed the Massage Marauder, so I don't have an NFL team right now.
Oh, okay. Well, let me
You
just
just
say this.
you was ready to cuss me out though.
No, no, no. But I will say this, though. Snoop Dogg no longer needs to be considered the person who speaks on the pulse of Black America.
Oh
That-
He's lost all credibility.
Oh, that was so disappointing. Oh, I'm so disappointed.
Has he ever really spoken on the post of Black America, though?
They've tried to make him the person to speak, at
He
least for
said
Black
that-
culture.
He said that anyone that performs for you know who is a jigaboo. So
Well, that's my point.
So
So
now a man
he
as a man
he
as a man thinketh, so he is.
it just I'm still scratching my head on what we saw. When was that video published in 2017?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
mhm.
And what we've got now?
Ooh, we look with that money makeup do.
Even though he technically didn't perform at his inauguration, but it was a Donald Trump sponsored event, so it still counts. His name was
Yeah.
attached to it.
Yeah. Just a bad all the way around. But anyway, we're gonna move past that and talk about football on the show today. A football heavy show. We got one Black college coach who got an interview for an NFL job to surprise everybody Saturday night. We got a classic that might not happen this season, and we got another celebrity coach who wants to go into the world of Black college coaching. And we'll talk about a coach who lost his job unceremoniously and shockingly on the show. Um, but first, we're going to talk about Eddie George, the current head coach of the Tennessee State Tigers, led them to a share of the OVC Big South title this year and a postseason berth in the FCS playoffs. Saturday night, after the Washington Commanders beat up on the Detroit Lions, go commies. Um, Jay Glazer announced in the post-game show that there was a surprise interview by the Chicago Bears, my team, and it was Eddie George. Eddie George, as you know, on the coaching football for 4 years, and he's not like this seasoned veteran coach. He hasn't won a national championship. He hasn't had a lot of accomplishment in his career, despite the fact him winning Conference Coach of the Year and finishing runner up to the Eddie Robertson Award. But the Chicago Bears, a lot of people say, wanting to comply with the NFL's Rooney Rule, reached out to Eddie George and interviewed him yesterday. Um, but this is not all surprising in NFL circles. Courtney Cronin, who is the ESPN NFL writer based in Chicago, she said that the Bears had been on Eddie George's radar for a minute, going back to 2023 when he was part of the Bill Walsh Diversity Coaching Fellowship during minicamp in 2023. And so Eddie George was one of their targets to see is interested in the job. everybody knows he's not going to get the Bears. Are going to probably hire someone like Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn or Mike McCarthy. God bless him. So fellas, what do we make of Eddie George getting this opportunity to be interviewed by NFL team starring Tim Rashad?
I guess for me, the question has to be asked, and I say this respectfully, because I'm actually pleased with the idea that Eddie George at least was considered for the interview. But there's just a part of me that wonders, are you interviewing Eddie George because you're genuinely interested in him possibly being the head coach of your organization? Or are you just simply trying to meet the requirements of the Rooney Rule? And I look, and I'm not complaining by any means, because I am one who's always said it's amazing how HBCU coaches are never considered for FBS head coaching positions. And damn it, we end up getting an NFL organization actually considering an HBCU coach. So head coach. So that in and of itself is something to applaud. I just find it head scratching that, nobody at the FBS level, to my knowledge, is considered Eddie George, but yet we've got a team at the NFL level, at the very least, willing to say that we've interviewed him. So I don't know if I have an opinion one way for or against it. I understand the need and respect the fact that you have to have, you do your due diligence and you interview the candidates that you want to work. Who knows? Eddie George, for all we know, could go in and they may not necessarily be that high. And then he gets in there and interview may be lights out. We've heard those stories before. Coaches either interviewed well or they didn't interview so well. And that was the determining factor as to what took them to the next level or why they didn't necessarily go to the next level with that particular candidate. But in this particular instance, I guess to answer your question, Kendrick, I'm happy for it. There is still a part of me, though, that just simply has to wonder what the true motivation behind this actually was about.
Well, it wasn't lost on me that this announcement came right after the Lions loss, because reports have been swirling for the last month that the Chicago Bears are heavily interested in the services of Ben Johnson, their OC, and he's eliminated from the playoffs now, so they can talk to him in person starting today if they want to. And obviously, Eddie George being a minority, he complies with the Rooney Rule, and they hopped on his interview for yesterday. They got him in Chicago, gave him some Harold's chicken, talked to him for God knows how long, got him out of her airport in record time.
Harold's chicken?
It's Harold's chicken. 6-piece, mild sauce, fries on the side, salt and pepper. That was his dinner. How you doing? What do you know? All right, goodbye. We'll see you later. But Christy, was your thoughts on this?
I have a two-pronged answer to this. Eddie George got that interview for two reasons. One, because he's Eddie George. I mean, we're talking about a guy who played 9 years in the NFL, ran for over 10,000 yards, helped the Tennessee Titans to a Super Bowl. People know Eddie George. It's not like, Ben Johnson is an unknown. You can't even say Aaron Glenn is an unknown, honestly, because he was a defensive back for a long time in the NFL, but he wasn't Deion Sanders level DB. But Eddie George, everybody knows Eddie George. That's one reason. Number two, Ken's right. It absolutely is to satisfy the Rooney Rule. And Bomani Jones made a great point about this from a couple of other, when the New England Patriots absolutely did what they wanted to do in terms of hiring Mike Vrabel, was that people keep calling for the end of the Rooney Rule. You don't want to see what's going to happen with the end of the Rooney Rule.
That is, amen. Right.
I mean, because you still got to have something in place to keep these people honest.
Yep.
As honest as they're going to be. If you take something away that even gives them, if you take something away that doesn't hold them to a modicum of honesty, then you can forget about it. We would never get coaches being interviewed for jobs again. So Bo is right in that regard. You don't want to see the end of the Rooney Rule, because what's on the other end of that is going to be right back to where we were before the Rooney Rule was put in place. So as much work and retooling as that rule probably needs, it's still best to have it than to not have it at all. And to just give an idea of what Ken was talking about, Mike Tomlin wowed the Steeler brass all those years ago, which is so funny because the Miami Dolphins said he was too hip hop, whatever that means. And since then, Mike Tomlin has won about close to 200 games, one Super Bowl, few Coach of the Years, and the Miami Dolphins have done absolutely nothing. So you could take that with, I mean, so it's obvious that there's, merit to interviewing and then showing what you got. And then, somebody in that room says, well, hold on. Let's not be so quick to dismiss this guy. Let's see what he's talking about. And even though Steelers fans are trying to get rid of him today, which would be the stupidest thing ever, you got to look back at the record. I mean, the man has not had a losing season in 18 years. So maybe Eddie George went in there and the Bears brass said, you know what? Maybe we don't need a Ben Johnson. Maybe we don't need a Mike McCarthy. Maybe we can go ahead and just ride this out with Eddie and see what happens. And I mean, it would be nice for them because the way they just absolutely dogged out Lovie Smith and have had little to no success since then. So it would be like, making up for lost time. But at the end of the day, it just feels like, yes, this was to satisfy the Rooney Rule, but I would rather have a Rooney Rule in place than to just leave these folks in the front offices to their own devices because we see what they've done without a Rooney Rule.
Yeah, let me just add to not to get off the subject, but I just want to kind of say something along the lines of what Chris said about Steelers fans wanting to get rid of their head coach. Just know this. Breaking news. Winning Super Bowls is hard. Hello. Getting to the Super Bowl is hard. Think I'm lying? Ask the Detroit Lions.
Ask the Cleveland Browns.
Ask the Cleveland Browns. Ask the Baltimore Ravens. Ask the Los Angeles Rams. But I mean, look, all we've heard all year was Detroit. They're going to be in the Super Bowl. We've heard this. Look what happened. No one said anything about the Washington Commanders, but look at them now. So I just want to say winning Super Bowls are hard or is hard. So keep that in mind, Pittsburgh, because you're winning games and you're getting to the playoffs, but winning Super Bowls is hard. So that's all I want to say. But sorry, I want to stay on subject. Go ahead.
Just to add to that point real quick, and it's the last thing I'm going to say before we get back on the subject. The Cleveland Browns and the Detroit Lions and the Arizona Cardinals are three of the longest active franchises in the NFL today, and they have combined for one Super Bowl appearance.
Mm-hmm.
Not win, but appearance. And by the way, the Miami Dolphins, just to pile on the Miami Dolphins, they have the second longest conference championship drought. They haven't been there since 92. The only one with a longer one is the Cleveland Browns, who haven't been there since 88. But back on subject.
Yeah, keep going, Jared. Like, your thoughts on Eddie George an opportunity to have an interview?
Yeah, you guys talked enough about the Rooney Rule, so let's just talk about Eddie George himself as a candidate. I think it's a bit premature. Eddie George had an excellent season this year. He is specifically did excellent in an area that the Chicago Bears need, which is building up an offense behind a star quarterback in Draylon Ellis and aided by receivers Jaleel Dean and Karate Brent Benson. So obviously, when you're looking for a coaching candidate who knows what it takes to build up an offense led by a star quarterback, Eddie George showed that he can do that this year. But he hasn't shown that he has consistency in being able to do that. Doing that 1 year, anybody can do that 1 year. We've seen plenty of coaches have one great year and then have years of inconsistency. So we need to see that Eddie George can accumulate years of success akin to an Eddie Robinson, akin to a Jake Gaither, akin to even more recently, a Buddy Pugh. We haven't seen that from Eddie George yet. So I think it's a bit premature for him to get NFL looks, even to be a coordinator at the NFL level, with all due respect. I love that it puts the attention on Tennessee State as an institution. I love the attention that it brings to the players, saying that they're looking, and it puts you in a situation where it motivates you every night to play well, because the NFL, while they may not be looking at you specifically, they're looking at the coach saying that he's coaching these players well. And we need to look at these players also who are executing this game plan so well. So while it is a bit premature, I love the attention that it brings to Tennessee State.
Yeah, I want to ask y'all this in that vein, Jared. Does Dick put more pressure on Mickey Allen, the AD for Tennessee State, to keep Eddie George now that he knows that an NFL team has looked at at their coach for a possible job, whether it be head coach or position coach or otherwise? Because I got his comments right here. He came out with a statement the other day in reaction to Eddie George being looked at by the Bears. He said, "We are thrilled that our head football coach, Eddie George, is being considered for a head coaching position at the professional level. This opportunity reflects the incredible dedication and success Coach George has brought to our program. While no decision has been made yet, we fully support Coach George as he explores this exciting possibility." He's very happy about this, by the way. "Regardless of what happens, we remain committed to building a consistently dominant football program that competes for championships year after year." So there's Mickey Allen's statement he made to the Tennessean yesterday. So my question again, like, does this make Eddie George a commodity that Tennessee State cannot afford to lose? That maybe kowtow to like some improvements to their football program, athletic department as a whole to keep him around, knowing the fact that NFL, at least one NFL team is snooping around, see about his availability. Starting with Chris.
Well, Mickey Allen, is it Mickey or Mikey? Because I don't want to mess this
Mickey.
up. It's Mickey. Okay. All right. Well, Mickey Allen seems determined to have Tennessee State as a world-class athletics program anyway. So whether Eddie George is there or not, that was probably going to happen. But it does call into question if he does have a plan B, because on the off chance that Eddie George absolutely wowed the Chicago Bears brass and he jumps the line and gets that job, then he has to find a coach that is going to come in, keep the guys that are there, hit whoever's left in the portal, or who has an unsigned freshman or JUCO, and keep this Tennessee State program rolling, because right now they're trending on an upward slope in the right direction. So I mean, if Eddie George does go to Mickey Allen and say, all right, we need this, we need that, and I'm sure Mickey would probably move heaven and earth to make it happen. I think what probably would benefit Tennessee State the most is that somehow or another they are able to have an on-campus stadium, because they've done a lot of, band-aiding as far as Hale Stadium goes. But Hale Stadium just, I don't know if it's beyond repair or they just have not had the funds to really just, sink in and do all the things that you need to do to bring a 50, 75-year-old stadium up to code. But that's the place that they probably need to start, is with an on-campus stadium, and anything else in the vein of like practice facilities, weight rooms, and all of that soon needs to follow. So even if Eddie George goes to Chicago, whoever the next coach is going to be, they're going to want to see those improvements as well. And it feels like A.D. Allen is definitely trying to do that for Tennessee State. So I think that's what's going to happen regardless.
Your thoughts on this, Ken?
I will say this, and I don't want to pretend to give anyone the impression that I think I know all there is to know about the in and outs of Tennessee State's athletic program or the history of it. Well, let me start with the mindset of Mickey Allen and the department. I was fortunate enough to interview Mickey Allen when he first became the athletic director at Tennessee State. And based upon my conversation with him then, based upon what we've seen up to this point, Tennessee State has a mindset, and I think it's safe to say that they are just, I was about to say they brag different, but no, they don't. They do navigate differently though, and they've made moves that are, it's just them. Hockey program being steadfast and stating that they have no desire to become a member of an HBCU conference, and that they are committed to staying not necessarily in the OVC, but they are committed to as it relates to football, committed to playing for CS championships and competing in the NCAA tournament year in and year out. So I think that in and of itself determines what the direction or the path or the course that Mickey Allen has Tennessee State going. Now, with respect to the infrastructure, Tennessee State, I think it's safe to say, is probably, and someone feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, I think Tennessee State may be the only HBCU with an indoor practice facility. I've been on the campus once, and that was one of the things that stuck out to me. I don't know if they're still using that. Okay, yeah, okay. So yeah, the only HBCU with an indoor practice facility. So they've got the bones in place as it relates to Hell Stadium. Yeah, it may be an old structure, but you know what? There are a lot of institutions out there with old structures that were built, in the 20s and in the 30s and so forth, and they've been able to, make renovation on top of renovation and that type of. So I don't necessarily think Hale Stadium is any different, but when you put in consideration what Tennessee State has had to endure, being a state-supported institution within the state. And given what we know, how that institution has been pretty much robbed of the dollars that it was, deserving, or dollars that were earmarked for that institution from the federal government, it is possible. Let's just simply say that. And who knows where Tennessee State would be at this moment had the dollars that were earmarked for them had gone to that institution to be utilized in a way that was fit. So I say all this to say, I say all that to say this. Mickey Allen is more than he's more than an AD who is fit for the job. And I think in the event that Eddie George decides he wants to move on, and let's just say he was offered that job, I don't think Mickey Allen would have a problem getting someone else or getting a plethora of candidates to come in and lead that program, and at the same time continue to move the program in the in the right direction. I don't think he'd have a problem doing that. And if he does have a plan B, it wouldn't, or should I say this? It wouldn't be surprising to me if he does have a plan B.
Yeah, while you were talking, Ken, I was thinking about a report that came out maybe a month or two ago that stated Eddie George was thought to be a candidate for the Kennesaw State job, which is an FBS school. And now you combine this with opportunity he had with the Bears. Like, people are sleeping around him. They think he could be like a really good football coach. So you're right, Ken. Maybe he needs to have a plan B, talking about Mickey Allen, because Eddie George is highly respected in the coaching game, being so young in the coaching game, only coaching 4 years. So, Jarrett, your thoughts on maybe the pressure that Mickey Allen faces to possibly have to keep Eddie George around?
Jarrett?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I lagged for a second while you were asking the question. Can you repeat it? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, just your thoughts on about whether or not Mickey Allen has any pressure or should be preparing himself to do whatever he can to keep Eddie George around, considering NFL team looking at him and a FBS school was reportedly looking at him too for a job.
Yes, because if it's not the Bears, it's going to be somebody. Everybody, there's going to be people that's going to want him, and there's going to be people that's going to be willing to throw money at him. So he absolutely should be have a plan B, as Ken said, for if he has an offer that he, pardon the pun, that he can't refuse. Eddie George is not just some coach. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. He's a former Pro Bowler at the NFL level. If I'm not mistaken, he's the all-time leader in rushing for the Tennessee Titans. That's who he is. He's a guy who is a great football mind. He knows what it takes to have an offensive presence. So if it's not a head coach at the FBS level or at the NFL level, he'll for sure be an offensive coordinator somewhere. He'll for sure be a running backs coach somewhere. So absolutely there should be a contingency plan should Eddie George decide to go elsewhere. Even though we all know he said he wasn't even thinking about coaching, and Tennessee State was kind of like a Hail Mary for him. He's caught the eyes of people elsewhere. So it's only a matter of time before he gets that offer. The question is, will he be willing to take it? Because he said that he wasn't willing, he wasn't even thinking about coaching, but he's here now. So absolutely. I mean, you should have a contingencies plan when you have success in general. For any school that has success in general, you should have a contingency plan. Just like coaches who have assistants who, you know, succeed ahead of every other unit. For example, Damon Wilson should have a contingency plan should someone call Anton Sewell. I'm pretty sure Eddie Robinson Jr. had a contingency plan for if people came calling Ryan Lewis. It happens. So you should have contingency plans in general if should your team have some success.
Yeah, like any AD will tell you, like they always have like a list of folks that they can call upon at a moment's notice to reach out to, engage their interest in a job that ever becomes open, and no matter what sport it is. So yeah, I believe Mickey Allen probably does have the list, or he should have it right now. So our next topic, we're going to stay with Tennessee State, and we're going to talk about the Southern Heritage Classic, which is in doubt as of today whether or not it'll be played because the game did not show up on the schedule of Tennessee State, which has been a long-time host of the game for more than 30 years. Their longtime opponent, Jackson State, as we all reported previously, they pulled out of future matchups with Tennessee State after the 2022 season. The last 2 years, Arkansas Pine Bluff has taken over as an opponent for Tennessee State. The game always played in Memphis every year at the Liberty Bowl. But this season, that game seems to be in doubt. Chris Stevens reported last week that the founder of the Southern Heritage Classic, Fred Jones, said once he saw that Tennessee State's schedule didn't include the game, he reached out to the school and Arkansas Pine Bluff to find out what was going on. Haven't heard back from either school just yet about the status of whether or not they're going to play in the game or not, what's going to happen to it. This is a pretty major thing that's going on right now. It's one of the longest running HBCU football classics in the country. For it possibly to go away because the main host of that school is not going to participate in it would be very sad. So fellas, what do you guys think about the Southern Heritage Classic not going away? Sorry, McKim shot.
First, to start it off with Jackson State. And I vividly recall how then President, Brenda Glover, was pretty adamant in indicating the impact of Jackson State not participating in that classic and the financial impact that it would have on the community. She's not the president there, right? There's an interim president there right now, if I'm not mistaken, right? I don't know what to make of this. I don't want to say it's the end of the Southern Heritage Classic, but if I'm Fred Jones, I think you need to just go ahead, brother, and just make this open. Make this an invite. If you want to say this classic and you want to continue making the Southern Heritage Classic a Nashville staple, a Memphis staple, then you're going to have to go ahead and put some feelers out and look at some other HBCUs, some regional HBCU. I know UAPB's been in there. I don't know how that's worked out, but maybe you might want to look at Alcorn. Maybe you might want to look at, I don't know, Grambling Southern. Actually, Grambling did participate in there 1 year. I actually went to that game. They played Tennessee State back in, what year was that? 92, 93, somewhere. You're going to have to open it up because clearly relying upon Tennessee State, or back then when you had Jackson State and Tennessee State kind of tied in, it was just kind of a, it's that game between Jackson State and Tennessee State. There is a shift that's taking place right now in HBCU, or should I just say college athletics. And you're going to have to possibly make that shift with the rest of follow that trend and make that shift. You're going to have to open this up and put some feelers out to see if there are other HBCUs who are interested in participating in that event.
So you think it's going to go the way of the Orange Blossom Classic? Doesn't have Florida A&M in it anymore?
Well, I mean, if it wouldn't be. Look, we've. Well, I don't want to necessarily say the Orange Blossom Classic is the only. My point is that it wouldn't be the first time. I mean, there's some classic games out there that have been played that have featured, different HBCUs each year. The first Circle City Classic comes to mind. Circle City Classic featured HBCUs, year in and different HBCUs year in and year out. Now, granted, it went away. There was a hiatus, and I think it's recently come back, and it's pretty much been, featured Division II schools. But hey, if you have to feature some Division II schools, if you have to maybe get Kentucky State and I don't know, Lane College, hey, you might want to try it. But I'm saying, man,
that doesn't work to me. I don't want to see that game.
I get it. It doesn't have the appeal. I get all that, Kendrick. I do. But look, it's either make the pivot or you don't make the pivot and you don't have a classic. So, pick your poison. And one isn't necessarily poisonous, but you're gonna have to make some moves.
Yeah, some of the commenters in our chat are saying, well, the price of business is going up. And one of the reasons why Jackson State pulled out of the game was because they felt like it wasn't profitable enough for them. Deion Sanders was on record saying that. Doing some research, like the contract between Jackson State and Tennessee State supplied each school $350,000 to participate in the game. But when you take on like the expenses and the travel and everything else, that may not be enough for a classic. I know Jackson and Tennessee is pretty close to each other in proximity, but when we talk about bringing the band and bringing the football team and the accommodations you got to make with hotels and lodging and food, like that stuff adds up. And granted, at the time, Jackson State with Deion Sanders as coach was a pretty high ticket. And so I would imagine, the price of business did go up. And I would imagine Fred Jones, a long-time promoter, had to think about that. So, like the incentive got to be on the promotion team to want to make these schools play in this football game year in and year out and not just have for the greater good of the community, because what's the greater good of the community standpoint if the schools aren't really getting any benefit from it other than showing up? Chris Stevens, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think what Ken said is on the money. I mean, Jackson State, and as much as it would bring me great pleasure to blame this solely on Deion Sanders, I can't do that. And because Tennessee State, has, kind of moved away from that as well. And it's probably going to have to be a point where it does become an invite, and you're going to have to, do the promotional legwork to make people care about this game again, especially if you're not going to have at least Tennessee State in there, because Tennessee State was for the most part carrying their freight, and even with Arkansas Pine Bluff filling the void the last couple of years, I mean, it was still a nicely attended ball game from what I could see. So I mean, the Southern Heritage Classic still has legs. The important part is now that the founder has to really make this thing again. If it's got to be Lane versus Kentucky State until you can find a couple of D1 HBCUs willing to take a flyer on Memphis, so be it. But that's what it might have to be at this point.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And it was just, I mean, it's unfortunate, but we're starting to see a lot less classics played across college football as a whole. Like, I think the last one standing, and you can't even call them classics because they're honestly conference games, are the Red River Shootout with Oklahoma and Texas, and of course the world's largest cocktail party with Georgia and Florida. Those are the only two I can think of that are still kind of considered classics, even though they're not really classics because those are conference games now. So, I mean, the classic is unfortunately, it's kind of gone the way of the dinosaur. I mean, HBCUs are still, holding their weight up, especially with the Bayou Classic and the MEAC Challenge, but we don't have the same classics as we used to have back in the day. I mean, there was the Circle City. There was actually a time when Delaware, because there was a rumor that Deshaun Jackson wants the DSU Norfolk State game to be played at Lincoln Financial Field. There was actually a time when Delaware State would play in Philadelphia every single year, once a year in the mid to late 1980s. So it just doesn't. I mean, back in the day, I mean, those were events, but now the way the college sports landscape has changed with respect to money and conference affiliations and different things of that nature, it's just not plausible anymore.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I think, and what I'm about to say isn't anything new, and I'm sure everyone is aware of this, but this is a business. And for the record, I said it started with Jackson State. I'm not blaming Deion Sanders. That's not the point here. It started with that move in which the Southern Heritage Classic finds itself in this particular situation. But what I'm saying is that the landscape has completely changed just since then. NIL players are jumping and like, look, we've got players now who are playing schools who've literally been at 4 different schools in the last 4 years. I mean, think about that for a moment. That's just how huge the jump that we've witnessed just in the past 4 or 5 years. At the very least, they played at like 3 schools in the last 4 years. So to the Southern Heritage Classic, look, man, Fred Jones, you might need to ask FedEx for a little bit more money. You might need to go ahead and ask those local mom and pops for some more money, because at this point you're gonna have to pay a mint. And this just isn't an HBCU thing, because I live here in Dallas, in the Dallas area, and I know this very, very well. Now, granted, Grambling and PV, they still play here every year for the State Fair Classic. Do know that even Grambling and PV, as historic as that matchup is, at some point said, look, you're gonna have to make this worth our while. The city of Dallas, can't think of the classic, can't think of his name, but the owner of the State Fair Classic, look, they had to come up with more money. And this was due in large part to what Texas and Oklahoma did with the Red River Shootout, which was played every year at the Cotton Bowl. And even they said, look, we can get these crowds at our own individual stadiums, and we can just make this a home and home deal. You are going to have to pay us more money. And the benefit for Texas and OU, as is the case with the Classic between, just so you folks know, as is the case with Grambling and PV, the benefit of paying or playing that game in Dallas every year is that each school gets the payout every year, as opposed to having to play at a home and home. So imagine Grambling and Prairie View going home and home, and then, okay, you got PV coming to Grambling. Well, Grambling gets that revenue, but now Grambling's got to go to PV the next year. Grambling doesn't get any revenue. It's all about expenses, and PV keeps the revenue for the gate. That's the reason why Texas and OU are continuing to play this game home and home, because it's an annual paycheck, and it's a big paycheck too. So they made it clear, granted, we like to get that annual paycheck, but do know we have no problem moving this game home and home, because we can just get one big fat paycheck every other year, and we can just play this home and home, and, screw that. Think this ain't a business? Even the Cotton Bowl game that's played on New Year's, it's not even played at the Cotton Bowl. It's played at AT&T Stadium. Think about that. So it's all a business. The Cotton Bowl is not played in the Cotton Bowl. But it's all because of the money. It's about the money. It is a business. So to the Southern Heritage Classic people, look, man, tell FedEx to cut some more checks. You're going to get some more sponsorship money and make it worth these schools' while to come and play you. That's ultimately what it comes down to. I'm pretty certain Tennessee State and Jackson State would have no problem playing in the Southern Heritage Classic if you made it worth their while to come and play. Plain and simple.
What would be worth their while to come play?
Then that is not for me to say. That is an AD question. I don't know what's worth their while, but I'm guessing $500,000 probably might be worth their while. I don't think too many schools are going to turn down $500,000, but just know, if you want these schools to come and play for you, you're going to have to pay them. Plain and simple. I don't know what that dollar figure is. You know, it's not the same for each school, obviously, but you're gonna have to make it worth their while to come and play.
Yeah, Jared Hoffman, your thoughts on this about Bowie State playing in the state for the Southern Hemisphere this year?
Oh, good.
You're on mute.
Jared,
you're on mute.
Oh, you're on mute.
Gosh, dog it. Oh man, I pulled a Kendrick. That's crazy.
Got everything at it, buddy.
But that's my first one ever. So don't think that it's still 1,000,000 to 1. But anyway, yeah, ain't no team in the CIAA gonna play in that game. That's not gonna happen. We in North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland. That's not happening. So you can forget about a CIAA team being in it. Your only chance is like maybe Tuskegee, who travels very well. Miles, I'm not too sure how well Miles travels, but I know that their home games usually are well attended. Outside of that, I can't think of much because who else you gonna get? Lincoln University of Missouri.
LU versus Mississippi Valley State. That is a money maker. Oh, it's going rain.
Unless Jerry Rice and Willie Totten are playing in that game.
Oh man, that is hilarious.
That's not going to sell well at all. So, yeah, I don't know.
You know the best you could do, and I say this respectfully, because I understand regional matchups matter. You can't just pull any school from anywhere and try to make it work. I get it. You got to have the regional. What made the Southern Heritage Classic so unique for such a long time is because of the regional matchups. You had an in-state school in Tennessee State playing against a regional opponent. Jackson State was just a few hours down the road. Okay, now. Can you get that same type of cachet if you were to say get UAPB and Valley or Alcorn? I don't know.
No, you wouldn't.
Maybe it's one of those things. Well, I was going to say you might have to build up to it. Maybe it takes some years to do it. But
what would be the hook though?
Huh?
What would be the hook though? Like how do you sell that game as a promoter?
What the hook gonna be?
I don't know.
Rappers, we're gonna have y'all rappers Gorilla. We're gonna bring Cardi B. We're gonna bring Flo Rida, somebody. You
can say Valley's got a 400-member marching band. I don't know.
I mean, and they'll go and
at the inauguration. That could be
I was going to say it's clear they'll go anywhere. So I ain't playing. I'm just saying.
Okay, I'm just saying though. But
you can get Angelo Ball to do the national anthem.
Look, you're gonna have to.
I might swerve in that corner. Whoa. Hey, that'd be a good halftime show. I'm not gonna lie, that'd be a good halftime show.
So I'm saying, man, I don't know what the formula is. All I would just simply say this: if you want Tennessee State and Jackson State to stay in that classic, you're gonna have to pay. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. You're gonna have to make it worth their while. I'm pretty certain they're not against playing it.
I mean, like Eddie George went out and said last year, like he really wants to play Jackson State, whether it be in the classic or some other type of scenario. But like he feels like those two schools need to play. So Fred Jones, the ball is in your court, bro. You gotta do something to save the game, man.
Yeah, I agree, and I agree with him. That's right, that's the only matchup I want to see.
But Eddie George didn't completely finish that. I'd like to pay. I would like to play Jackson State, but not for anything. That's and that directive probably came from Mickey Allen.
And what makes it worse is that Eddie George saying that he wants to play Jackson State, it makes Jackson State's price go up. Mm-hmm. So you're gonna have to pay more out of pocket because he's saying that that's who he really wants to play. And now if you put him up against Mississippi Valley State or UAPB again, it's not as enticing. So you're gonna have to pay him more if you want. So it's a lose-lose situation. If you put him against somebody that's not Jackson State, you have to pay Tennessee State more. if you want Jackson State to be in the game, you have to play Jackson State more. So either way, you gonna have to pay no matter what.
I mean, you got to do like a Howard or a Florida A&M, a Grambling, a Southern, some school like that.
Who gonna pay for Howard's traveling fees to get there?
Want people to go to the game, man, you got to think about that stuff.
All I will simply say is this: doesn't Tennessee State play North Dakota State next year?
Yep.
They played them this year too.
Yeah, at Nissan Stadium this year though.
They got home with them, yeah.
So the game is going to be at Nissan Stadium first, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah. it was at North Dakota. There was at North Dakota this year.
Oh, they already played.
Yeah, they played this year.
What was the turn? Was it a blowout?
Yeah,
of course it was.
Okay, that's right. That's right. Okay, so here is why I find that game. Just another side note. I'm really interested to see. I've always said this about North Dakota State. I would love to see North Dakota State play a game down south during the month of September. I don't know. It may not make a whole deal. It may not make a big deal of difference, but they always play in that damn dome. They play in that cold weather, but I would just love to see how they deal with all that humidity during the month of September. And so
against Tennessee State,
I just find that somewhat intriguing. There's a part of me that just thinks that they'll get off that plane and they get out the airport and they get into that weather and be like, whoo.
You know what's funny about that? They just played Colorado this year. Imagine if they had came to Jackson in 22.
That's what I'm saying. I guess my point is that climate is not something that they're used to playing in. That humidity ain't no joke. And if you're not used to it, you're not used to it. It takes some getting used to. I just think that game might be one of those. I'm not saying that they're going to win it, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if the humidity plays a factor. I could be making this all up, but I've always wanted to say, how would North Dakota State play against play Jacksonville State somewhere down south during the month of September, and let's see how you do then. So that's just my. I know we're a long ways from there, but that will be one of the things that I will look forward to towards that game when we see them play next September.
Tennessee, North Dakota State, they did play in Tennessee last year in September against East Tennessee State, and they won.
Oh, did they?
Points.
Well, yes. See, I don't. By how much?
By 3 points.
See, I didn't say they was gonna lose, but I know that humidity.
Tennessee State was only 7-5 this year.
So I'm just saying, just something to keep in mind. I don't follow North Dakota State, obviously, but I'm just saying. But we'll see come September. Anyway, I didn't mean to get off point. Sorry.
I don't think they're gonna melt because they play a school in the South. They're still a really good football program.
They might.
You're gonna melt. That's funny.
I'm melting.
Okay, shifting gears, going back to Philadelphia, Chris Stevens, your boy, Shady McCoy.
Oh boy.
He really wants to be a football coach at Howard University. He appeared with his buddy Deshaun Jackson, a new football coach at your alma mater, Chris, Delaware State, to talk about how that all transpired. And in the midst of their conversation, he made a pitch to take Larry Scott's job. And here's what he had to say about that.
Howard
said, "Oh my God,
Howard, listen, you guys got a lot of great history and tradition, and it would be an honor to accept the head coach's job
at Howard
University, and I will make sure that them young brothers will be good, be disciplined, and be great young men. And we gonna win championships.
Y'all see what's going on?
And you gotta offer me a lot of money. You feel me? Howard. I'm reaching out once again.
Ooh, hey, that'd be crazy.
Come on.
You just put your bid in right now. Howard don't play.
Let's go.
The faces of Jared Hoffman and Chris Stevens are priceless. in regards to that clip. So I'm gonna start with Jared Hoffman. His reaction about what he just heard and saw.
I'm gonna go on mute for a second.
Oh, you know it's serious right now. We gotta go on mute on purpose.
Oh my God, where do I start? First of all, it's a completely bad look on Deshaun Jackson to be co-signing this when you're entering your first year in the MEAC, and you gotta know that Howard's coach is not going anywhere. How do you not know that? Why are you co-signing this? Like that's a coaching job that's available. It's not available. That's the first thing. Second thing, he said, we gonna win championships. Does he not know that 2 years prior to this season, they had won MEAC championships? One of them was outright. Sir, know about the school that you are making a bid to coach for. The third thing, I'm so annoyed now. I changed my mind. I don't want Michael Vick and Deshaun Jackson to be coaches anymore because now you got all these NFL players talking about they want to coach at HBCU that have coaches already. I changed my mind. I was wrong. I don't want Michael Vick coaching at Norfolk State, and I don't want Deshaun Jackson coaching at Delaware State. Bring back Connell Maynard. Bring back all the coaches that we fired. Bring back Bubba McDowell. Bring back the guys that have already been here. Because now you got all these fools who ain't never stepped on a sideline before, who ain't never had to recruit a day in their life. The only coaching they've ever done was Pee Wee football. I don't know. All these guys, they coach at football camps and think that all of a sudden they can coach at HBCUs, and we've empowered them because we have hired a bunch of guys who ain't got nan experience coaching a college football team. They look at us as the schools that they can jumpstart them, that they think that they can just have instant success. I hate every part of this, and this is. I'm not even going to say this is no disrespect to Shady McCoy because it is what it is. Take it how you want it. I really don't like this because the ignorance that he spewed in that pitch was ridiculous. I'm really annoyed. Now I'm done. I'm done.
Y'all done left Jared Hoffman speechless and frustrated. And moving on to another speechless and frustrated person, Chris Stevens.
I would not trust LaShawn McCoy to clean up after the horses and the elephants in a parade, let alone coach a black college football team. Nothing about that dude is serious. Nothing about that dude is legitimate. And this is all disrespect, all shade to shady, whatever you want to call it. Not one HBCU better reach out to him because there's nothing about him that makes a lick of sense. I mean, and if you and as Jared said, if you are going to pitch to Howard, please understand that Larry Scott has placed players in the NFL. Larry Scott has won MEAC championships. Larry Scott actually knows how to conduct himself in a public setting, something we don't know if LaShawn McCoy can do or not. So Larry Scott is mountains ahead of where LaShawn McCoy swears he can put the Howard football team, in which they are already at. They had an off year in 2024. So what? There's nothing that says that Howard can't win the MEAC again in 2025. And it's going to be with Larry Scott as head coach. It's darn sure not going to be with Shady McCoy. So yes, we have kind of empowered, some of these NFL retirees to say, okay, now maybe I can, get into coaching and, be like Prime and start and be like Joe Clark and come down there and lay down the law and then go coach at a FBS or PWI. No, we don't want you. I'm glad that Ed Reed finally saw the writing on the wall and took a high school job because no HBCU worked with common sense was going to hire him to lead their football program. So I want these retired NFL players to stop going on podcasts saying, yo, if I went to an HBCU, we do this, we do this, we do that. No, you wouldn't. And this is from the same person who said, yes, let's give Deshaun a chance. Let's give Michael Vick a chance. But now, yes, we need to close the gates off a little bit because too many people are getting comfortable with things about HBCUs that they know nothing. They know nothing about our schools. They know nothing about our tradition. They know nothing about our history. They know nothing about our culture. They just see it as a way to get more clout. And I don't know how you need more clout when you play in the NFL for so long, but enough's enough. We got to draw the line somewhere.
And to be clear, I do not blame Michael Vick for this. I do not. In a way, I don't blame Deshaun Jackson. I blame Deshaun Jackson for co-signing him on the podcast, but I don't blame him for getting hired by Delaware State or Michael Vick being hired by Norfolk State. All they did was apply for a job. That's all they did. I blame the schools for empowering these players to believe that all you got to do is apply for an HBCU coaching job and they'll just hire you. That's who I blame. I blame the schools for empowering them. And y'all better hope that it works out for y'all. I bet y'all better not have no 2-win seasons. I know that. I know y'all better be in contention for the MEAC title this year. I know that. But I don't blame Michael Vick, not one bit. He has nothing to do with this. I blame the schools for empowering these players to believe that HBCU coaching jobs are easy, that you could just apply for them and you'll get them because we're desperate. We're not desperate, but you're making us look desperate.
I mean, Deshaun Jackson did say no more 1-win season, so if they win 2 games here, it'll be an improvement. But yeah, like guys like Tyreek Hill, he tweeted out after Michael Vick got hired by Norfolk State. He said, "Have my HBCU coaching gig ready." So goes to your point, Jared. Like these dudes don't think black college or something you got to actually work for to be a coach yet. They think because you have a name and you're an NFL guy, you're gonna like skip the line to get there. But Ken Rashad always says this one thing about these guys coming out and making these profound statements about wanting to coach at black colleges, and that's how come none of them ever asked their own alma mater to be the head coach. Tyreek Hill ain't asking Oklahoma State, I'm gonna take Mike Gundy's job and be the head coach. Shady McCoy ain't asking the folks at Pitt, like, yeah, I'm gonna take your job. It's always the black colleges that think it's easy, but can't expound on that point.
Yeah, so let me, I'm amen, because that's exactly what this comes down to.
Let's go.
Stop asking, and okay, I have to put it in this. I have to put it this way. So I'm gonna use the. I'm not gonna use any profanity. Okay, we're gonna keep this G-rated. Stop asking HBCUs for stuff that you know damn well the PWI you attended won't give you. Plain and simple. Now, I want to put this in proper context because I know some were saying he was just joking, he was just playing. But you know what? But there's a certain level of seriousness behind that. Stop asking HBCUs to give you stuff that the PWI you attended won't give you. And the only reason why you feel empowered to say what you say is because you think you are black. You can make those comments. But you're talking to someone, my age. And the reason why this is such a sensitive subject for me is because I came up during my college years at Grambling, and I'm from LA. I came up during a time when there were some folks, when I go back home, like during a break or during the summer, whatever the case may be, and someone would ask, you're a college student? Oh, where'd you go? I go to Grambling. Oh, you go to one of them Negro schools, or you go to one of those black schools. And these are people who look like me who said that. I went to school at a time when people who looked like me thought that going to an HBCU or at that time one of those black schools wasn't good enough. So that's the reason why it's a tad bit sensitive for me. Now I understand everybody in my family didn't go an HBCU. I'm not saying that you had to have attended an HBCU, because I know everybody don't necessarily view HBCUs the same way. They don't look down on them. They just, for whatever reason, you didn't attend. But there is a certain level of respectability that goes with this. Because people always love to accuse those of us who attended HBCUs as being hypersensitive to certain issues. This is one of the reasons why. is because you think you are black, even though you didn't. You think you have the right to speak on behalf of an HBCU, when the fact of the matter is you don't. And at the very least, if you do, at least be educated in what you're saying. Because there are some who didn't necessarily attend HBCUs who are educated enough to where they can speak in a way that is justifiable and understandable. But then you have those who just speak from a completely different perspective, and they're just speaking total ignorance. And whether LaShawn McCoy or anyone else for that matter want to deny it, you feel that you were entitled to talk about that because you are black. But you didn't think enough of an HBCU at the time to go to one. So, yeah, this may not be that big of a deal. It was probably just a playful moment. But do know that there are some of us who really take offense at that BS. So, the same thing applies. And people, look, I got into it with Roland Martin. You guys may remember when FAMU had those players. It was like 20 some odd players who were ineligible before they played against the University of North Carolina. And Roland Martin, who went to Texas A&M, was insistent on trying to get someone at FAMU to come and bring him on so he can bring his crew so they can have a damn town hall meeting. Who the hell wants to have a town hall meeting to talk about ineligible? Who does that? That's not worthy of a damn town hall. And I said, I will say now what I said to him then on Twitter. Stop asking, and my words were, stop asking FAMU for shit that Texas A&M wouldn't give you if you asked them.
Never trust.
You encourage black students not to go to Texas A&M, and they still going because of the so-called DEI rules.
Oh, that's over with now, though.
But I'm just saying. But that was his argument.
Yeah. Here's my thing,
and I have nothing, and this is nothing against Roland Martin, but my point is that at some point, and I'm not saying you need to know your lane. I'm not hating on nobody, but my point is that just because you are black, and just because you have an appreciation for HBCUs, that doesn't necessarily give you the authority or the right to just say whatever you want to say about it and not get some sort of blowback if for whatever reason you are right or for whatever reason you are wrong, and you need to be called out on it. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, it's a sore spot for me, but it needs to be known and it needs to be said.
All I was going to say is never argue with a man with an ascot and no neck. But that's a different story for a different day. But yes,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
But yes, we are sensitive about this because everybody on this screen, we got Jackson State in one corner. We got Delaware State in this corner. We got Grambling State in this corner. We got Bowie State in this corner. We have lived this experience. We've lived walking across the yard. We've lived homecoming. We've lived different whatever situations we've had on our campuses, whether they be positive or negative. We've lived this life proudly. We wear our stripes and our scars of HBCU alumni ship or alumni-dom or whatever you want to call it with honor and pride. So yes, we do take offense to when people like LaShawn McCoy, who probably, oh God, I have so many negative words for that dude. It doesn't make any sense. But and to come at a person like Larry Scott, who I have interviewed and talked to many times, is a consummate gentleman, a good person to talk to, and a really good football coach. I mean, it's not like Larry Scott has just led Howard to the depths of, we'll say, Mississippi Valley State or Bethune-Cookman. They've won MEAC championships 2 in the last 3 years, been to a Celebration Bowl. So why are you opening your mouth to say, I want the Howard job, when the Howard job is spoken for and will not be coming up anytime in the near future? So yes, we are hypersensitive to when people step out of their lane, because this is our lane. This is us. This is what we do. We've done this as students. We've done this as professionals. We know HBCU culture. We know the life. We know this. You can't just step off a football field. Yes, you played in the NFL. Yes, you won Super Bowls. In LaShawn McCoy's case, I use that term loosely because he was the dude that, just happened to put his name on the group project in Tampa Bay and Kansas City. But yes, he's got 2 Super Bowls. But you just can't walk off a field and say, oh, now I'm ready to coach at HBCU. Says you. But those of us who know better, we're not buying that. Sorry, Jared, go ahead.
And also, the point I've seen a lot of people saying that, oh, these guys just want to support HBCUs. They want to lend their support to HBCUs. I don't know if this is breaking news to anybody. I don't know if this is some news flash that's going to shock you. Not having a football coach or a successful football program is the least of our problems.
I know that. Amen. Say it again. Say it again.
You would be better if you want to support HBCUs. Donate to our educational programs. Donate to our athletic budget. Donate your time to these students who are trying to get into their career fields. Like, what, you being our football coach, people think that Deion being the football coach was some big difference maker for the university as a whole. He did wonders for the football program. For the football program, that is a small microcosm of what Jackson State University is. And I'm saying that with no disrespect to Deion Sanders at all. Michael Vick being the head coach of the Norfolk State football program helps the football program. It doesn't help them in any other athletic program that they have, and it doesn't help them in any of their other educational programs. It doesn't help as much with enrollment. It doesn't help with any of those things. The only thing that's going to improve is the attendance for the football games, and maybe the win total on the football field. That's it. And maybe he'll help with building facilities. But that helps the athletic program. What about our education? What about the graduation rate? What about those things? What about the people who get out of college and they have to wait 10 years before they have their first full-time job? How about those people? Our football program should be the least of our worries. It's important, don't get me wrong, but you're making it seem like you're doing some big service for us when all you're doing is helping our football program. Again, we don't take it lightly what you're doing, but it is a small microcosm at the end of the day.
Yeah.
How about you talk to our state governments? How about you talk about federal governments who have been underfunding us for years? And you're talking about being a head coach of a football program?
That ain't sexy. That ain't sexy. It's look, we all know it. It's the culture that makes it so appealing. It's the culture that makes people say the things that they want to say. It's the culture that makes people want to do some of the things that they want to do, like have town hall meetings because players are ineligible for a football game. It's the culture. But I'll say it again, and I've said it before. Keep in mind, HBCUs were not created for the purpose of having powerhouse football programs. I think people forget that. And I'll end it with that.
Yeah, my last thing on this is like just studying the conversation around when these hires are made. Well, I'm glad and really excited that Michael Vick is going to be coaching football in the MEAC, and I'm excited that Deshaun Jackson is going to be coaching football in the MEAC. But at the same time, you hear like their press conferences and the statements that they make, and the people around them. They talk about them doing, like Jared said, a service to black colleges, like giving back. Like it's a charity almost. I'm like, when have we ever heard at any other level a coach being hired, whether it's FBS or FCS, a new coach going in there and people talk about, oh, he's giving back to his community. Like we're like Make-A-Wish folks or something like that. No, like folks are hired to win football games. That's why they're there. That should be their objective. Yeah, if we get whatever residual benefits off their name, off their influence, that's great. But at the end of the day, they're there for one purpose: to win football games and to help with whatever revenue streams they can. So that's the only thing that I don't like about this conversation is like, oh, like these guys are doing black colleges a service. If without them, like nobody was talking about Norfolk State or Delaware State, because otherwise these are poor schools that nobody cares about will give a chance to. Well, to some degree, they may be true, but at the end of the day, like black colleges are not your charity cases, they're not your experiments, they're not your philanthropy. Like if you want to donate money If you want to do other things outside of being a football coach, do that. But like to use football as a way to clout chase or anything else like that, that's not what we're here for. This is sports, and sports are about winning, and that's to be the objective and goal for everybody. Jared Hoffman.
You know what's funny about that comment about these coaches doing charity? Michael Vick is getting paid $400,000. So he getting paid $400,000 to do charity. So we doing something right if we got the money to get him in the door. Mm-hmm. So you think he doing charity? You must not know. And I'm pretty sure Deshaun Jackson ain't getting no chump change to be at Delaware State. So y'all thinking they doing charity? They getting paid handsomely. But like Ken said, that their alma mater wouldn't offer them to do this quote unquote charity. So go ahead and believe that they're doing black colleges a service or that they're just trying to lend their support. They wouldn't be in the door if they ain't get the money. So,
and let me just add to that and do know that the HBCUs that are paying the money that they're paying, they are expecting something in return. Mm-hmm. And they will fire your ass if you don't get it done. Think I'm playing? Ask Q Jackson. Ask Q Jackson.
Yeah. Q Jackson, yeah.
I love this from Tiger Nation Undefeated. This should be a tagline. Some people should tattoo it on them.
Yeah, the culture is not for sale. Amen.
That's the mic drop. That's it.
Yeah, it is. And I think, that's why, that's the reason why we all this publicity is what it is. Deion Sanders went to go see his daughter play recently at A&M. And I think I saw in the social media comment, he talked about how, I guess he appreciated the culture that A&M provided while he was there. You can't put a price tag on that. You won't get that anyplace else. I knew exactly what he meant when he said that. And that's what makes HBCU culture so unique. And the fact that we've been able to do more with less for generations. And some of us been on this. Some of you just finding out about this. So I'm just saying, but I guess my point is to just don't get it twisted. Because I can assure you, whether it be Mike Vick or Deshaun Jackson at Delaware State, they ain't paying you all that money for nothing.
Yeah.
So, this ain't no charity case. That both of those institutions are respecting a return on investment.
Yeah, Michael Vick's going to be among the highest paid coaches in FCS starting next season. So they expect a lot from him. They won. And so our last topic of the show, not that one or that one or that one or that one. Okay, Bobby Rome, Florida Memorial. They parted ways over the weekend. Bobby Rome had been there for 3 years, 15-15 record, led the football program to back-to-back appearances in the Sun Conference Championship game. And so right after New Year starts, he finds out he's not going to be around anymore. The school made it official today with an announcement. He kind of went ahead of the school and posted on his Facebook page a statement about it, which reads, "Good morning, Facebook family. We're all a family on Facebook. That's right. Sometimes change is inevitable. After 3 seasons here in South Florida, the administration at Florida Memorial University decided not to renew my contract and move in a different direction of the football program. This decision came as a surprise and has been a significant challenge for me and my family. I want to express my gratitude to the student athletes I had the privilege of working with. Helping you grow, develop, and graduate has been an honor. I'm also extending my thanks to the coaching staff for the collaboration and camaraderie we shared during my time at the university. As I reflect on this chapter, I'm ready for the next journey, wherever it may lead. Thank you for all your support." That was Coach Bobby Rome, and Chris Stevens wrote about it over the weekend, and had a conversation with Bobby Rome briefly about what transpired. So, Chris, what do you make of this, and kind of like how all this went down, kind of like in a shocking fashion?
It stinks. Bottom line, it stinks. This remind you, this is the Florida Memorial Football Program that had been dormant for 60 something years. They stopped playing football in 1958. They restarted the program right around the time the pandemic started, 2020. The first coach they had didn't do very well. Enter Bobby Rome. They finished 3-7 his first year. They go 6-4 in 2023, 6-3-1 this past year. Both times they made it to the Sun Conference Championship game. And that's not good enough for you as an administrator. And it's mind-boggling to me because, I mean, this is a dude who actually won games at Virginia University of Lynchburg, mind you.
I'm sorry.
And I mean, if you can win football games with the Washington Generals of black college football,
I knew it was coming.
then you are doing something right.
I knew it was coming.
And then you go to Florida Memorial, who's been, in mothballs for generations, and you lead into back-to-back winning seasons, and then all of a sudden your president says, "Oh wow, I want to go in a different direction." What different direction are you going in other than down? None of it makes any sense. None of it makes any sense. I mean, and I've talked to Coach Rome at length about different things, regarding black college football and different things of that nature. And I mean, I can't say what our conversation was because it was an off the record conversation, but just know that this makes no sense. None whatsoever. And I don't know where Florida Memorial goes from here, but I can tell you they're not going any higher unless they find that they're going to get an NFL football player from somewhere, which apparently is, again, can't say too much, but yeah, it's a mess. And I think what we're starting to see now with there's a level of delusion with a lot of university presidents, board of trustees, and yes, Kendrick, I'm going to use your favorite word, stakeholders. There's a lot of delusion within that camp who thinks that they could just get something better every time something doesn't go their way. We saw it with Florida A&M. We're seeing it with other HBCUs. It's like, oh, wow, we don't like this person. Let's get rid of them and bring somebody else in. It'll be so much better. Is it really? Is it real, son? Is it really real, son? Let me know, son. No, it's not. So I just feel bad for Coach Rome because this is a dude, again, he won games at Virginia University of Lynchburg. He won games there. And he turned Florida Memorial into a winning program within a season. Back to back, mind you. So I just don't understand. I mean, I feel bad for him. And again, it stinks because it's well after a time where he could find another job and where the football players could transfer, and that whoever this new coach is going to be able to keep this program at a level where Coach Rome is at. They're going to stink this year because those kids are going to leave, and whoever the new coach is going to be working with bare bones. So whatever Florida Memorial has planned, God bless them, but this is stupid.
Yeah, I think that's the part that. No, let me just say, because I don't know, but I think that's the part that really is disturbing about this. It's the timing of it. When you could have made this decision
months ago,
shortly after the season ended, in which you could have given not only the coach options, but you could have given yourself as the institution some options as for a replacement. So, I'll admit I don't want to take a conspiratorial mindset, but there is a part of me that makes me wonder: is there more to this than just wins and losses? Or is there some sort of a personality dispute between with the higher ups? I don't know, but the timing of it is what really is troublesome about what we're talking about right now, when it could have been done much earlier if you didn't want to keep him on as your Coach Roman on as your head coach.
Hey, go ahead, Jared.
Move aside, Mississippi Valley State. Someone has dethroned you for the dumbest hot firing or non-renewal of a contract this offseason. I need y'all to understand the context behind this. We are literally 2 weeks away from National Signing Day. 2 weeks away. You are about to have guys enter the portal that came in with Bobby Rome. You are going to have a slim pickings of coaching candidates. What about this makes sense? Nothing about it made sense. Like Ken said, you could have done this in November. Yeah. Before early signing day. It still would have been dumb, but at least you would have gave yourself time to find somebody who is qualified enough to be in that position. You are about to scrape the bottom of the barrel for the next. I'd be surprised if they got somebody good. And by the way, Mississippi Valley State, breaking news, Kendrick Wade is at the University of Memphis. So that just lets you know that he wasn't going to be without a job for very long. And I know that Bobby Rome is going to be somewhere good, and he deserves it. I hope that he is at a Division I institution. I hope that he's there because he deserves it. And Florida Memorial, I don't know who you about to get. You about to get somebody's assistant to the assistant to be your next head coach. Because it doesn't make sense to make this announcement this late in the game. We are, 2 or 3 weeks into 2025. What about that makes sense? By this time, people already have their head coaches in place and are doing the recruiting to get ready for spring ball. You are about to just now be hiring your head coach. That makes no sense. We saw how it affected Florida A&M and the kind of season they had. Imagine if they had a full off season. Imagine if Texas Southern would have had a full off season. The fact that they were able to overperform with the off season that they had last year. Imagine if they had a full one. You're giving this coach literally 2 weeks to put together an impressive signing day roster. That is literally mission impossible. You are going to be scraping the bottom of the barrel for recruits. You're going to get guys who are rejected by schools that are better or that are worse than Florida Memorial. This was easily the dumbest non-renewal of a contractor firing that we've had in HBCU football this offseason. Because it makes no sense at all, unless there was something behind the scenes that we just don't know about. Maybe the president never liked them, and he never wanted Bobby Rome in the door in the first place. Because that's the only explanation I got for that. That's the only explanation. Because he has the credentials. This team has had 2 winning seasons in back-to-back years. They literally played the SIAC championship runner-ups to a tie. The SIAC championship runner-ups, by the way, that was one of the top offense. That was one of the top offense in Division II football. That's who they played to a tie. They were at 28-28 at halftime with that team. And you let him go. That's the team. He beat Edward Waters 3 years in a row. And by the way, an Edward Waters team that in 2023 had a winning record. So what are we talking about here? What are we talking about? That man.
So to that, let me just say this, because I know FMU is NAIA, and I don't know if National Signing Day rules apply to them.
No, it don't.
As it would with the NCAA. However, those students still have options.
Exactly.
And they can always transfer to an NCAA institution. Just keep that in mind. But another thing I just want to tap on that, to say to that, is in the statement that Coach Rome made when he talked about how it came as a shock to him and his family. And I really believe he was sincere in saying that, because again, I'm not trying to be in his pocket, but I'm pretty certain that being the head coach at FMU, I don't know what the salary is, but I'm sure he ain't rich. He ain't just getting paid hand over fist being the head coach at FMU. And so to have that decision made at this point of where we are right now with football, I think he was sincere when he said that. So just something to keep in mind, man. That's a real tough pill to swallow when something like this happens, when you put in consideration what he's done for that school up to this point. I understand it's transactional. I get it. But the timing is really, really suspect.
Maybe FMU wanted Shady McCoy to be the football coach. I don't know.
You know what? I
Some
wouldn't
kind
be
of
mad at
motivation.
that. I wouldn't be mad at that.
They deserve. Yeah, I was gonna say they deserve each other.
Yeah, it's so disappointing. Like this late in the game, after the new year, well after the season is over, and it didn't seem like there were any tea leaves out there to suggest that he would not be around next year. I don't know what the motivation is for them to make this move for a really good football coach who, like Chris Stevens said, like resurrected their football program and made it not only respectable but competing for championships, which everybody think would want, but had to be something else going on there for that decision to be made. I'm just sad for him and his family and for the football program too, because it was definitely on the rise. Because they played Grambling this year, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or last year. And they played them pretty tough last year. And they played them pretty tough. They were in that game till late in the fourth quarter. So he has something going there. And to have it just taken away like that just speaks poorly on their leadership at FMU. So hopefully Bobby Rome finds his footing somewhere else, and hopefully that football program can recover eventually, because it's just a tough blow for them. And with that being said, Chris Stevens, you know what to do.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for watching us as always. Thank you for spending Martin Luther King Day with us and not in Washington, D.C., where the Orange Nightmare has resumed. But if you'd like to help us keep this operation going, you can go to hbcusports.com/donate, or you can go the Zelle route, donate at hbcusports.com. Whatever monetary donations you feel compelled to give us keeps this operation going. Also, be sure to follow us on all manners of social media. We are on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on X, TikTok, Threads. We're also on Blue Sky. And
TikTok's still around, y'all. It ain't go away. TikTok's still here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. TikTok is back for now. But yeah, Blue Sky is a great place to be as well. We were over there as well. So join us over there. And yeah, that pretty much covers it.
Marcus Freeman is going to shock the world.
Do it for the black coaches, Marcus.
Marcus Freeman is going to shock the world.
Do it for us.
We need one win today after what transpired earlier this morning.
Lord have mercy. Yes, we do.
Yeah, man. Do it for the Black Irish and white people.
Oh, man. Y'all be good.
All right. We'll see you guys on Wednesday. Peace.